I want to start with maybe the title, Wouter, because I read at the back that there may have been an initial title, This Is Not Death.
Yeah, so there's a bit of a story with the title. Obviously, I appropriated from Epicurus, which was a famous sort of existential philosopher. I'm not an intellectual, so I'm not going to divulge into talking about this guy's life. But basically, my wife actually came up suggesting this as a title because, I mean, when she was young, she was also like going through some mental health stuff, and at some point in her life, she just like painted on the walls of her bedroom like all these huge Epicurus like existential quotes, and then like her dad was really pissed off. She rubbed them out, and they were like hidden behind Titanic posters. I mean Leonardo DiCaprio, but yeah, it was such a really sort of like struck a nerve like coming up with that title. How that sort of sat with the content of the book, and like obviously it's like the only sort of direction that the viewer gets, like looking at this book. There's no essay in it and no sort of other sort of direction in it, so it really sort of colors the content, but it does it in a really appropriate way, I think, because like I often like got a little bit in my head or like suffer with some things I'm dealing with, and sometimes it's good to remind ourselves that this is not death. We're like doing this. We're making books. We're taking photos of silly little rocks, and we're alive. Yay!
Yeah, it's like, is death coming, or is it already been, or you know?
No, it's coming for sure, but this is not it. We'll never experience it.
Yeah, I just recall I had it at work, and I had it on the counter at work, hoping my colleagues would pick it up and look at it so I could get like a kind of neutral taste test of what it would be. And it's interesting you say that the title is the only direction that people get. And I wondered about the tone of the work, because my poor colleague Alice was like, ooh, edgy, dark. And I see a lot of humour in it, which made me feel really weird. And I obviously know that you're a weird guy, so I just wondered, wanted you to know how you think of the tone of the work and how that comes across. You know, obviously, I'll save the question after.
You're rehearsing so well. Maybe it's sort of good to point out in a way that I did make a lot of this work sort of like during the pandemic, and like I think here's my little box. Like it's sort of at the beginning of one of the early lockdowns, because I work at sort of an organization in Canberra called Photo Access. We have like a shared darkroom, so like with the first sort of pandemic lockdown, it was like I quickly grabbed like an enlarger and just like emptied out my little garden shed and just like set up this makeshift little darkroom, which was obviously, the shed was not quite light proof, so I can only print when it was like no moon.
Was it the speeding camera one, or
no, not the dust. It was just a moderate little enlarger, but I saw this really shitty little darkroom in my shed, and I could only make like really bad prints because like I couldn't really see what I was doing very much. So that's sort of the origin of like lots of the stains in this book. Like I actually brought two. Like, see, this was like my washing tray outside of my shed. It was just like this little perspex stub where I was just washing my prints and then hanging them on the washing line. And like lots of these little things are like incredibly stained. Like as you sort of like translate it back into the book, like
there's lots of embarrassed of the mistakes, or
yeah, I'm just like I'm filled with shame. I was hoping you wouldn't point it out.
No, but I found that like,
can we just move on, please?
No, because I find it the most. That's the nicest part about the work. I don't want to talk about it. The sort of fingerprints of Fixer on it, but also the constant repetition. Yeah.
Well, I mean, to talk a bit about that, like, I mean, I have sort of a background more like in printmaking and in painting, and like when I was doing like making like etchings, there's always like there's this sort of breed of like printmakers who like have like keep their white perfectly clean and then like coat their plate like really immaculately, and like I always think like with like handmade processes like darkroom prints or like anything in art is like you're gonna fuck up and there's gonna be stains, and like it would be like absolutely inauthentic to try to pretend that I don't stuff it up, you know. It's just like I mean you can throw the word authenticity around, but like lots of the prints in the book are just like straight scans of the entire sheet of what I printed in the darkroom, and I I wanted it to be like that, to be sort of really close to the materiality of the print.
But even like this one, it's like, and then I don't know which one's my favorite either.
Yeah, that's always the important question, isn't it? Which one do I want to put on my wall?
Yeah.
So yeah, lots of that stuff is sort of made in this period, and like the whole play with the fossils and stuff is like literally just me being at home, is like looking at these little things. What can I do with this? And like it is like I think the element of play and experimentation is quite sort of a big drive in my work. But it's a very confusing book, and it's very strange, and it's like I was like, when I was really happy to do this with Void, but I was a bit worried when it was published, like people are going to look at this book and it's like, what the hell is this? What's this guy about? Like, I mean, it's this concoction of like such of images that seem to have nothing to do with each other. And like, I said I've written it a few times in the past, sort of few months, talking about this. I think, I think what it represents to me is that like I don't experience my life as like, oh, and then I go through this thing, and then I'm really happy, and then I have a baby, and then I'm depressed, and then I'm really this. And it's like, it's not like this series of very curated events that are like all like sort of bleed nicely into each other. It's like all these things have nothing to do with each other other than the fact that I'm the one experiencing them. So I wanted to, again, to be translated in the book, and that's why it's such miscellaneous concoction of things, because like to me that is my reality. I don't like live in projects. I'm not like, don't live a project-based lifestyle or something. Like, you know, it's like, oh, and during this period he was really into this facet, and then he made this book. It's like, no, my life is like chaotic, and it's like, and it is self-referential, if you want to say, but it's unresolved. I think it's like, what I like about this book is that it doesn't prescribe to the viewer like how this should be read. I think often I feel it really irritates me when I get to like see art, and I'll try not to rant about this. I probably will rant about this. But like if sort of the meaning of the work is really prescribed in sort of the artist statement or in the caption, it's like, this is why I made the work and this is what it's supposed to say. It's like, why did you fucking make the work? It's like, I'll read the caption, you know? Like, it's just like, I feel I want to take the audience, like, there's some really stupid people, but most people are not stupid. I want to give the opportunity for people to make their own connections, to engage neural pathways, and like, actually, I can see something this in this work or this, and like, I'll leave the openness. I think is sort of my goal. Is in that context, like, make up your own mind. Like, I don't want you to like it or hate it, but like, there may be something that will trigger something one day, and the next day you'll say, "Oh, what the fuck is this?" Like. But to have that undirected is like, I find very interesting.
So, sorry, you have things that repeat as a motif through it, and obviously has a strong personal meaning to you, but you're not concerned with someone being injected with your worldview or something, or what you want to say about it.
I think it's gonna be like complete cafe of bar philosophy or something, but like, I think there's so much things that sort of bind us together as like humans. We all go through the same shit more or less, so it's like, I think there's recognizable things in it, and like to talk to the repetition of the things that like I really intuitively work with things that I am sort of drawn towards, like those ravens or like the fossils, and just like I see all these like little trajectories in my work that I just like try to deepen and try to examine it. Like, for example, with the ravens, like initially, like I think it started with like my wife's like a really avid bird watcher, so like she's dragged me out many times against my will to go look at some bird somewhere. But then like I think it was I dropped my son off to school like one morning, and then like was really sort of drawn to these ravens, and I just had this like sort of telescopic lens, which is like really horrible to use. But initially I was like really viewing these ravens as like, oh, these are quite ominous sort of like creatures, and obviously like in mythology throughout different cultures there's like so many connotations to these birds. So I'm aware of all that mythology that exists around these birds, and I think initially I also sort of like lean towards that interpretation of the encounter with this specific murder of ravens, but like pretty much all the ravens in the book are like one little community, one murder or an inconvenience of ravens. But I think there was a shift in that period. I shot these specific birds that actually and probably also like at the same time I went through getting to know these specific birds. I actually went through like sort of a change in my own life as well, that I was struggling with lots of things, and then like when things started getting better, I started viewing these birds also like in a different light, and they became more sort of like like a feeling of like tenderness. I could see like these birds like sort of preening each other's feathers, and like I think it was one like couple, let's say, I don't know how to tell the difference in sex between ravens. Like, let's be straight, I have no idea. You know?
No. Not yet.
Like, so it was like this two sitting together, and they're like preening each other's feathers, and like you cannot see that in the light of like this is a bad omen. I mean, there's just two birds that are like related, and they're like friendly. So it's like I felt just like a deep love, and I just feel like these sentinels like watching over me. Is like I always have during that time I always had this camera with me. So just like, riding to work, I used to see the same group, and like it's like, oh hey, it's like they're just there, like this society just. And
I mean, they look at you a bit too, don't they?
They do, yeah. But yeah, sorry, before I really interrupted you when you were trying to point out that this specific little sequence in the book, because it sort of stands out a little bit. It's probably like the only sequential like series that sits inside the book.
You must have been happy when you got home and looked at those photos.
Yeah, it's like bang. It's consistency. Here we go. Yes, finally people will understand what I'm doing. I felt so privileged, like to be privy to this little scene that I felt it's. That I like that it sits in the book, because obviously there's the image of my son, which also like there's this coming of age story sort of woven through it, and it's, for me like that's like an alteration of that story in a way.
Yeah, that leads on to what I was just thinking in my little head. That there's this nice that element of you participating in the world with other people. Like Celia's only in one photo, I think, or maybe her hands in another. But there's constant references of you not being alone. Like I often hear your work described as being romantic, which is obviously like genius boy, this is the world.
Thanks.
But there's so many things in your work that show that there's something going on in the same situation, and that Celia's taking you somewhere to see a bird, or Felix is playing around, or collaborating. Tell me about that.
So I mean, I think so Felix is like now like just turned 8. So before I had children, like I was also shooting, and it was much more about sort of the urban like documentary, or like say driving out somewhere. It's like, oh, how far can I go in the car? It's like, oh, let's go to Cobar or so. Let's go. So we're exotic. It's like, let's just shoot some Australian shit. Like, and like sort of the drive to like really get out of Canberra, or like go somewhere away from home to
Googling serial killer location.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm just strong. I don't think I just use like a bit of wood and just point towards it. Start shaking. But like, it's just, I mean, it's obviously such an obvious kind of thing in like our mammalian life. When we procreate and we have a child, life is just completely different, and like it's a complete paradigm shift to how you perceive life. And like I think for me, it's being someone who makes images that that's completely like changed my world. Like, because I mean, I work so much within my own little world that obviously that made a really big impact, and obviously you end up turning your camera towards that as well. So it's like, I mean, like the catalyst for like all the sort of the pictures of the excavation were just like literally like Felix like during like a lockdown. It's like, oh, I want to play Minecraft in the backyard, and like
did the NBN break or no?
Actually, I didn't dial before I talked. But I was slightly concerned, like. But yeah, that's literally how it started, and then I was like, Celia was about to give birth to our newest baby, and so as I was digging that hole, I was like intuitively like sort of shaping it into like the traditional burial like kind of shape proportion. I was like, oh, the baby's about to be born. I'm thinking freaking grave. Like it was a little bit like literally on the nose what this book is about, but it's like it was as much as that sort of a cliche, that sort of that void. I was but it was really like, for me, it was just like a visual, like an abstract kind of thing of like just like excavating that, and like I was just like trying to make the walls of that void like as sort of straight as possible, and like there was something really it was like playing with space and form, and like in a way sort of like a performance kind of piece that I did together with my son that started leading sort of his own life. And then like so then I sort of like, okay, let's get rid of this like rectangular shape. We made it into like an oval shape, so I want to try to make it as perfectly round as a whole. So I put a pole in the ground, a bit of cord, and like really made it nice and round. And then
petrol naturally comes next.
Yeah, I mean, I've always had a proclivity to fire, unfortunately. But yeah, had a bit of petrol around, so just like playing with petrol a bit, like Felix signing petrol. It's like Felix was taking photos as well, so it was like having a great old time. Lucky it was in winter, so it was all fine. Bit of fire safety training there. But then as we made the cylindrical hull, like what happened is that we dug through the grave of one of my chickens. Where you can sort of see this little darkened bit here. So time to get up. So you can see like here's just like this little dimple in the soil layers. And that was like the grave of one of the chickens that we buried a few layers earlier, a few layers. Well, present time layers. So it was like sort of this kind of lesson again, like about sort of the coming of age. Like, I mean, I know every time we lost one of our chickens, like Felix completely devastated, like this, like, because the child has no like concept of death until like those moments where you're putting the animal in the ground, and you put some dirt in it, and it makes like put some flowers in. It's like this incredibly beautiful and like pure kind of emotion, and then like sort of the recurrence of that while excavating that sort of like brought that back up. Not that he became emotional, but it was like, oh look, yeah, we do pass away and we disintegrate. So yeah, as the play sort of became a bit sort of serious in that kind of context. So like again, someone else sort of said reference to it as like a lesson. The whole became like sort of a tool in a way to teach that.
And who filled the hole in?
Oh yeah, that's reluctantly. My wife was like, "When are you going to fill the hole?" Okay, tomorrow I will fill the hole. I'll get around to it. It'll happen. So yeah, the hole is.
You could have had a pool in summer, or
yeah.
It's a small dam. And these other, tell us about the different paper and why the prints are different. What's that?
Yeah, I mean, so that was like an idea. So I mean, obviously the book is designed by João Lino, like the graphic designer for Void, and I was really happy to sort of be led in that collaboration. Like, I mean, I literally sort of went to them like, boom, here's like 300 images, like make something with this, I don't care. Like it sounds a little bit sort of like arrogant or like maybe like there's a French word, but I'm not gonna bother you with. But like I don't believe that as an artist you should be able to like everything. Like, I mean, some people are really good at like photographing, some people are really good at like printmaking, or some people are really good at sequencing, some people are good at putting exhibitions together. But I really enjoy working with like curators. Like people say, okay, let's let me have a go at this. What can I achieve with this? And I find it really delightful then to see like what someone like João sort of made with this, and like the paper was like a total suggestion of him. As the sequence is like sort of Mirto, the editor from Void, so it's like really happy to play. I feel if you collaborate with people who are like deeply creative, like I don't want to be micromanaging, saying like no, this image needs to be next to that image, and the image like I mean honestly sometimes I like stop the sequence, like it's still going to be my work no matter what kind of form this ends up in, like, so it's very interesting to see like how someone else approaches that work. So I mean, just quickly, like there's obviously like another big sort of part of this this body of work is those the fossils that are in the book, and like the sad thing is also there's like an egg as well in it, and like people are always like, oh yeah, he means it's about fertility, and like but there's also like a really sad story about the egg. Sorry to bring it down again, but it was like the egg of one of the chickens that died. Like one day I was like picking mushrooms in the forest, and I wrongly identified these mushrooms, and I was like, hey, I'll just chuck them in the compost, and yeah, the poor little chicken ate the bad mushroom and like died.
What was its name? Does Felix name them, or they?
Yeah, I was there, but it's just buried up completely.
It's repressed.
PC. But, so the egg sort of, I blew out the yolk of the egg and I kept the egg because I was like Araucana chicken, so the eggs were slightly blue. So I was like, oh, it was the last egg laid by the chicken. I need to hold on to that egg. So it's like, it's also like a bit of death in that life symbol in a way. Which is kind of sad. But like, I think what fascinates me about the fossil is that giving some visibility to like life forms that are just gone for just so long. Like it's just like I feel happy that they're sort of represented in this book, like these weird sort of mollusks and stuff that lived like millions of inconceivably long before we were anything. Like these things are around, and like that's sort of like when I hold those little rocks. I should actually brought one. Like I mean. Maybe you wouldn't, the magic wouldn't translate, but to me it's something really crazy. I was like just playing around with these little things, and it felt like such an enormous like little thing that I was doing, like moving these age-old things around. And I mean, effectively everything we touch is pretty much a fossil. Like I mean, look at dirt, like microfossils. So it's like everything has that sort of incredible deep age, but. Yeah, I don't know. It is again. It's that element of play. Is like why I was just literally picked it up while I'm making stuff, trying to compose stuff with it. But it felt like something really meaningful, and I don't even quite know yet what that is about, other than sort of the consideration of like deep time and like sort of how futile sort of our own lifetime is compared to like these things. I mean, these things were even like sentient or like then I'm conscious, and then I was like thinking about with that whole like I mean. How can I fossilize myself? What would it take to become a fossil myself? So I had to like go lie in that hole and then I'd be covered by a layer of silt and then like sort of rocks on top of that and like billions of years and then like there's a fossil, Van de Voorde fossil. Like I only dream of that.
Yeah.
You know?
I was thinking these as like the stillest life photos possible.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Playing with a foot, like you can't get stiller than that, can you?
That's the stillest life. So that could be a good title for the book as well.
Yeah.